let's see, let me advance my slides here. There we go. So since ancient times, and probably more in ancient times, we considered food our most important medicine. This quote comes from Hippocrates in Greece, father of modern Western medicine. Let food be thy medicine, let medicine be thy food. And most cultures, partially because we did not have pharmaceuticals at the time, used food as their approach for therapeutics. Also in Greece, we have the origins, or actually, sorry, this is a Latin origin of the word for recipe, which actually is the same root for both prescriptions, the RX symbol that we have, and for the word recipe, which originally started as the name of a prescription and then took on the form that we know it in as a directions and list of ingredients for food. So that's a very interesting tie in there as well, that food was really tied in with medicine in ancient times. And this is a photo I took of the market in Jodhpur last month. And this proverb, which, obviously is translated, hopefully is correct, but I really like it, whether or not it's an accurate Ayurvedic proverb or not. When diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. And when diet is correct, medicine is of no need. And I think that's very powerful. That really encapsulates food as medicine. I would say with a caveat as a doctor that sometimes we still do need pharmaceuticals. So I wouldn't say no need, but I would say not as much need. So again, getting back to the importance of what we're eating and spices as well. And then a more modern quote from Michael Pollan: eat food, not too much, mostly plants. So these three quotes for me symbolize, again, the importance, I should say, of food as medicine. And this last modern quote, really in 7 brief words, truly encapsulates, I think, the most important message for everyone, regardless of their personal eating style, whether that's completely plant-based or not, that it should be mostly plants, and that we should operate and exercise moderation. So the evidence that we have for eating mostly plants, again, whether you're completely plant-based or not, is very strong, in particular with red and processed meats and with processed foods. So studies show that 1 in 10 premature deaths are preventable if American adults cut their current red meat consumption to less than half a serving per day. And we know that eating plant-based proteins instead of red meat is associated with lower risk, severity, and can also cause reversal of chronic diseases. That includes diabetes as well as heart disease. And from an environmental point of view, eating less meat is associated with more sustainability and a smaller carbon footprint. A recent meta-analysis also showed that the Mediterranean diet, which is just one of the diets that have been studied widely, versus the standard American diet, increases life expectancy, and that this persists throughout the lifespan. So of course you get the greatest gains if you start when you're a young adult, that you can add up to 13 years of life. But even at age 80, you can add 3.5 years if you start eating more in the direction of a Mediterranean diet. The largest gains made by eating more legumes, whole grains, and nuts, and less red and processed meat. So while this focused on the Mediterranean diet, again, because of the research that has been done in that area, I like to show this slide that shows healthy eating plates and pyramids and other shapes from around the world to show that the Mediterranean diet eating pattern actually can be replicated in pretty much any cuisine. And what that means is that it is mostly plants, emphasizing a lot of whole grains and with smaller amounts of the other foods, including meat. And I just think this is a really fun slide because it shows how, while the types of produce depicted are slightly different depending on the region, the message is very much the same everywhere here. And the two that I find most interesting are that the Chinese food guide is a pagoda, and that the French one, which is next to that, is 3 columns, which, maybe is for the tricolor flag, but it's very different. And I was especially surprised by the French one, since they are known for cuisine, not to really actually depict food. But again, while the studies have shown the Mediterranean diet is very powerful, I like to interpret that loosely and apply it across cultures. So we have all the, these studies, we have those diagrams, but the truth is that people eat food and not nutrients. So this is why we need to talk about food and also talk about cooking. Many benefits of home cooking. Basically, you achieve your nutrition goals if you cook at home much more so than when you eat out. And conversely, when you eat out, you are actually adding a lot of things that are bad for our health and wellness, like added fat, sugar, and salt. In addition, you have control over your ingredients, so you can get better quality ingredients when you cook at home, potentially save money, and there are psychological benefits shown with family meals, getting a family together and talking over a shared meal. This is a picture of the pop-up kitchen called Thrive Kitchen at Kaiser Permanente in San Francisco at our Mission Bay campus, which is where I practice primary care and internal medicine. Since the pandemic, the classes have actually been virtual and they're free. When they were in person, and which I hope to go back to as well, they were available for a nominal fee and for non-Kaiser members as well. So keep that in mind. The virtual classes are actually available to non-Kaiser members if you're interested in taking classes with me, which I offer once a month. And that information can be found if you just look up Kaiser Permanente San Francisco Healthy Cooking. So I feature a completely different menu each month, and I vary the type of cuisine every month as well. As I mentioned, though, in those studies, they found that the most important foods to add to your diets, regardless of your eating pattern, were legumes, leafy greens, and whole grains. And by the way, I don't think I mentioned when I started speaking that I would like all of you to pay close attention, because we'll be raffling off a couple of copies of my cookbook, Spicebox Kitchen, at the very end of today's session. But you have to answer the questions that I will be posing correctly in order to win. So pay attention. So next, one other very easy and important but useful tip that I like to leave people with for nutrition is to eat the rainbow. So not only is it attractive and colorful, different colors actually correspond to different antioxidants. Antioxidants are the chemicals that are found only in plants, not in any animal-based foods, that protect against chronic diseases like heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. Fortunately and very conveniently, again, different colors correspond to different antioxidants. In this picture here, we see the orange carrots, which are full of beta carotene. We see the purple or red cabbage, and that has anthocyanins. And then the red tomatoes have lycopene. So it's pretty fascinating, actually, what nature has taken care of. So I mentioned how people eat food and not nutrients. A corollary to that is people eat food only if it tastes good, right? So we all have the desire to do the right thing, and the right thing can include what your doctor or dietitian tells you to eat. But if it doesn't taste good, none of us can stick with it. So again, that's where cooking comes in. So in this one slide, I'm going to try to encapsulate all of the lessons I've learned over the 12 years I've been teaching cooking, and even the things that I've learned in culinary school and teaching my classes. And it's pretty simple, but these are powerful things to think about. One, eat seasonally and eat the rainbow, as I just mentioned. Focus on flavor, not just salt. You can still use a small amount of salt. Most salt in our diets is from food that you purchase outside the home and processed food. So a small amount in your cooking, unless you're severely restricted by your physician, is there to enhance your flavor of your food. But I really want people to think more about herbs and spices, and also acidic flavors like lemon juice and vinegar to bring out the flavor of foods. Include a variety of textures to make it interesting and, again, appealing to us. Use healthier fats like olive oil, nuts, avocado, unsaturated fats. And then think about presentation. Try to make your meals visually satisfying, easy to do if you make it colorful, but also I always encourage people to plate their food, even if they're eating leftovers, even if they're, just eating alone. It makes it much more satisfying for us and much less likely for us to kind of eat mindlessly, because you'll want to just enjoy the experience. So moving on to spices. So we know that spices add flavor to food and that they're a way of connecting to diverse cultural traditions. So this is a picture of my masala daba that's in my cookbook. And that's why my cookbook is named after Spicebox Kitchen. And today in the recipe I'll be teaching you, it will show you how to use some spices, which I know you use already in Indian cooking, for those of you, and the majority of you here on this call who cook Indian cuisine, but that they're used in other cuisines as well. And today's recipe will focus on Persian or Iranian food, which has similar spices. I think this is really important because I think people sometimes think, oh, I like the flavors that I like. And what I like to show people is that actually the flavors that you like may well be used in other cuisines that you're not as familiar with. Aside from flavor, spices have health benefits. This is a picture of a spice market in Morocco. So cooking with spices lowers how much salt we need to use, as I already mentioned, because you have other dimensions of flavor, which are, truthfully much more interesting than just salt. Spices are anti-inflammatory as a class and also contain antioxidants, right? So spices are basically plants that are dried and then ground or left in whole form, different parts of plants, whether it's the seed, the stem, the fruit, any part of a plant. And because they are plants, they contain antioxidants, which, as I mentioned before, are not found in any animal products. Also, because they're plants, spices can support a diverse microbiome. So the microbiome, as many of you may know, is kind of our next frontier of medicine and understanding what contributes to chronic disease. So the microbiome is what's located inside our gut. Thousands and thousands of species of bacteria. The more diverse, the better. And what we know for sure is that eating plants is the way that you can increase the diversity of your microbiome. In fact, studies have shown that even within a week, if you change your eating pattern, namely, if you improve it by eating more and a more diverse selection of plants, that you increase the diversity that quickly of your microbiome. And that means by increasing the number of species of different bacteria. And spices, again, derived from plants, have been shown in a pretty recent study that they can do the same thing. So for people who are thinking, oh, I don't eat that much, I can't eat that many different vegetables, you can really increase the number of diverse produce that you consume by adding different spices to your diet. So even more reason. That is hot off the press as of either late 2022 or early 2023. All right, now I'm going to go over some common spices, what they taste like, how you use them, and some of the health benefits that studies have shown. So first, starting with chili peppers, we know that they're spicy. They're used in many foods as long as you like spicy food. And the list of health benefits are as general as a longer life, to benefits in terms of preventing cancer, heart disease, benefits for blood sugar control and weight management, and also improving gut health, including diversity of the microbiome, and may also have some antimicrobial properties. Cinnamon is another spice for which we know has great benefit. It has a sweet taste, and in the West, used primarily in baked goods and sweet things, desserts, but in India and in the Middle East, used in savory food as well, or even primarily in things like curries and stews. And has benefits for the things that actually affect most adults around the world: blood pressure and blood sugar, as well as brain health. Cumin has, an earthy flavor, is used, as you know well, in Indian cuisine, but also in Mexican cuisine, Middle Eastern cuisine, and even in parts of China in regional cuisine. And this is a really good example to me of how a spice that you might know within your own culture actually can be explored in other cultures' cuisines as well. And that can be a way to get yourself kind of learning about another cuisine that you may not be as familiar with. So this can be, cumin is especially helpful in digestion, and it's also a source of iron, which can prevent anemia. Moving on to garlic, used in most cuisines, and it tastes like, well, garlic, right? It's savory, it's aromatic. Very powerful for heart health. It can help lower blood pressure as well as LDL cholesterol. And in a different sphere, it also has antimicrobial properties. Ginger is another spice you're familiar with, has a sharp, bright, maybe spicy flavor, used in many Asian cuisines, also in desserts and in just as a simple tea. Many gastrointestinal benefits, including nausea, and also it's very potent as an anti-inflammatory. And one interesting study showed that just 1/8 of a teaspoon, which is a very small amount of ground or powdered ginger, was equivalent to the prescription medication sumatriptan, otherwise known as Imitrex, in treating migraine headaches. So I like to talk about this, with my patients commonly for whatever cause of nausea they have. And that could be in association with migraines. And if they have migraines, it may help, it may not help, but it's certainly worth trying and does not have side effects as opposed to the medications that we prescribe for these conditions. Moving on to black pepper, we all know this, used in cuisines around the world, has a sharp flavor. Peppery, we even say. It's known as an anti-inflammatory. It's also a friend of turmeric in that it increases the bioavailability and absorption of curcumin, the active ingredient that has bioactivity in turmeric, in particular for anti-inflammatory effect. So anytime you're using turmeric, you should include some black pepper. Otherwise, you're not really getting the maximal health benefit out of it. It also is a friend of tea and can help absorb the polyphenols, which are antioxidants found in tea. It's used also for digestion and in weight management as well. And then fenugreek is one that I'm using, really considered an herb, although the seeds would be considered a spice. I'm using the leaves today in our dish here. So if you're familiar with it, it has a grassy, sweet, and herbal flavor. It's used a lot in vegetable dishes, but can be used in many other things. It interestingly can help promote satiety. So that may have a benefit for weight management, keeps you full. And it can also protect your liver. May benefit blood sugar, and it's used for a wide range of hormonal support. So I first learned about fenugreek as being beneficial for breast milk production in lactating women. And this is, through both scientific study and anecdotal evidence with a lot of different patients. I think this is truly very helpful for that benefit. It can also help around the time of menopause, and in general is beneficial for sexual health. Turmeric, which I've mentioned a couple times already, is also used in my recipe that we're going to be making today. Has a distinctive earthy, peppery flavor, used in curries and many more things, and is, very well known now in the wider Western world and the internet as an anti-inflammatory. So a study looked at using turmeric and showed that 3 to 5 teaspoons per day, which is a fair amount actually, but definitely possible, can help with arthritis pain, similar to anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen. It also has anti-inflammatory benefits in less pain-related ways, because we know that inflammation is the cause of most chronic disease. So it's been shown to have benefit for autoimmune disease, cholesterol, blood sugar, as well as brain health. So that's my tour of some of the spices, which there have been studies for health benefit. So how to get the best flavor from your spices. I suspect that many of you already have your own ideas about these, but just as a summary for people who are not as familiar with the spices, buying whole is best. They'll keep longer, and then you should grind them fresh to get the most flavor. Whole spices can be kept for up to 5 years. Ground spices generally lose their flavor, but don't become dangerous. They just lose their flavor, but also likely some of their health benefits after about 6 months. To store your spices properly, you'll maximize your chances of optimizing how long they'll last. So something that is not permeable, like glass, you want to keep them in a cool, dark, and dry place. And so, a metal masala daba that is not exposed to the steam of cooking would be ideal for this as well. And you want to add them early in cooking, as I think everyone on this call knows, as opposed to just sprinkling them in at the end where you don't bloom them and get their flavor. And you also want to either toast or temper them or make a tadka. So something to bring out their flavor by releasing their essential oils. People who are not familiar with using spices tend to just sprinkle them in, and that really doesn't bring out their best flavor. And then in the last part of my presentation, before I get to the cooking demo, just want to take you on a short tour through my cookbook, Spicebox Kitchen, which is mainly vegetarian with a few pescatarian recipes, with recipes from around the world. And I use a lot of different spices in this. The first section, even before you get to the 4 sections of recipes, is my Healthy Cooking 101, where I talk about stocking your pantry and the ideal kitchen equipment for healthy cooking. I go over many spices and their health properties, similar to what I did for a small number of spices in this presentation. I talk about what I consider to be the building blocks of a healthy diet and go over menu planning. And then the second section are the recipes from 4 different areas of the world: California, Asia, Mediterranean and the Middle East, and Trinidad in the Caribbean. And this is really one of the only cookbooks that you can get aside from in Trinidad, that feature the cuisine of that area. So the first section is on California, and this is just a couple of recipes from the book. On the left is arepas, which come from South America, and that recipe features cumin and garlic. On the right is what I call my sophisticated ginger orange oatmeal, which of course features ginger. So just showing that even for quite simple techniques with food, you can really vary your food and make it delicious, as well as having the health benefits of those spices by changing your spices. The next section is Asia. It's primarily East Asian food, but also some Southeast Asian and some South Asian recipes. The pictures I have here are from East Asia, Celebration Red Salad, which features black pepper, and on the right, a Balinese green apple salad featuring garlic and chili peppers. The third section is on the Mediterranean and the Middle East. And on the left, you see a recipe for shakshuka, which comes from North Africa and is made in several countries, including in Morocco, featuring cumin and garlic. And on the right is a recipe inspired from the Canary Islands. And so this is Canary Island potatoes with romesco. Romesco is a sauce that features red peppers, tomatoes, and many spices, including chili peppers, smoked paprika, and cumin. And then again, in the final section, the cuisine of Trinidad. So Trinidad, for those of you who are not familiar, has a population that is about half derived from African slaves and half from India, actually, who were brought there also not in the best of circumstances, but as indentured laborers. Trinidadian cuisine, just like when cuisines go to migrate to any other region, has its own form of Indian food. So this is a recipe for curry mango, which is a side dish and features turmeric. And on the right, sorry, I'm about to sneeze, is a recipe for what's called Port of Spain corn soup. And this is actually a variation of what's served at carnival time in Trinidad and comes from the Afro-Caribbean population there. That recipe features chili peppers and thyme. So in summary, do not forget flavor, use a lot of spices. And we're almost ready for our demo. So our demo is going to be for a plant-based version of kuku sabzi. A kuku is a frittata, basically. It's usually made with eggs. But Ashish, challenged me to make an eggless version since I'm trying to promote plants here. Well, although I'll say that the original recipe in my cookbook features eggs, I enjoyed the challenge of coming up with a plant-based version. And I'm actually very happy with how it turned out. And have shared it with some of my Persian friends who are trying to eat plant-based. So this is a frittata that's eaten, as a snack, can often be wrapped into the lavash or the flatbread as kind of a sandwich. And another reason why I wanted to feature it now is that last week was the Persian New Year, or Nowruz. And Nowruz means new day. And this features many, many herbs, which not only have flavor, but count into our servings of vegetables for the day. So I think it's a really nice way to celebrate spring and celebrate all the herbs that come in spring and add both flavor and nutrients to our diets. So this on my last slide is just to thank you and to share my social media, which is at Spicebox Travels, and my Facebook page and a YouTube, which honestly I haven't updated since the pandemic, but I do have some videos there. And so please follow me. And if you're interested in my cookbook, again, we'll be raffling off a couple of copies, but I also encourage you to get from your favorite bookstore or also your local library, because I think it will be interesting and hopefully of benefit for your health. So with that, I'm going to migrate over to the table I've set up behind me, and there will be a close-up camera. So you can watch me both from the front view as I'll be talking to you, and then you'll see an overhead view of what I'm cooking. So give me just a second to get over there. So again, Spicebox Travels and the Doctor's Spicebox are the two places you can find me.
Yay, thank you, Dr. Xu. Does anybody want to post that from our team? Spicebox Travels.
Okay, great.
Dr. Xu, do we call you doctor or do we call you chef?
You can call me both, either or both. As I used to say to my kids' friends when I used to chaperone field trips, I said they could not call me by my first name, but they called me either, my kids, so-and-so's mama, or they could call me doctor. So they would always call me my kids' names plus mama. You don't have to call me mama though. All right, so we're gonna get ready here. Oh, I have to turn on we have to spotlight my close-up camera, which, okay. So if someone can spotlight this one as well for the cooking demo.
Dr. Xu, Prajakta is just going to set it up in a minute, okay?
Okay, yes, I'll start, I'll just talk before I start any of the action here. So in front of you, you'll see, actually from the front view, all of the ingredients for this, and it's very, very simple. So I'll talk about the ingredients first. And so we'll start with the herbs. As I mentioned, I hope if you're cooking along and if you're cooking along, feel free to open your camera so I can watch you as well. We have our herbs here before I cut them up. We have mint, some Italian parsley or flat parsley. In a pinch, you can substitute regular parsley. We have cilantro, otherwise known as coriander leaf. We have dill. And we also have some scallions.
Dr. Xu?
Yes.
You will need to turn that video on. I think there is a little message on top of that.
Oh,
Can
okay.
you check what that is?
Yes, thank you. Okay.
Okay, because you can see it.
Now you can see, yeah? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. So scallions or green onions, typically, traditionally, leeks are used, but I think, let me fix this for you so you can actually see. Okay, I think that will work better for the cooking part of it. Leeks are traditionally used, but I think that most people have scallions commonly in their pantry, so I substituted that. But you could use leeks if you have those. So those are the greens, which are really the key aspect of this dish. And again, I feel like I need to adjust this so that you don't see my back and you can see. Let me adjust that again. Okay, I think that will be better, maybe. Okay, yeah, that will be good. So we have our herbs, and then let me show you the other fillings. So we have some finely chopped walnuts, which maybe I'll see. Oh, okay. See if that works in the close-up. So I'm getting used to my setup here. We have some dried barberries, which are also known as zeresh in Persian. These are very, very similar. They're dried berries, very similar to cranberries. So if you can't get these, but you can if you go to a Middle Eastern market, but if you can't get them, just get dried unsweetened cranberries, or in a pinch, dried unsweetened cherries, which you'll have to chop up. And if you don't have any of those, get some dried currants. So basically some small tart dried fruit that's unsweetened will work for this. And then for our spices, I'm just going to hold them up by the close-up camera. We have our fenugreek, fenugreek leaves, and I do see in this one question for the sour cherries, dried sour cherries. So not jarred ones, although that would probably work as well. I think the jarred ones will be too sweet though. And then for spices, here I have some turmeric and ground black pepper. And these are just the other ingredients, a little bit of baking powder and salt. So these are the seasonings. And now for the exciting part, or the secret for eggless, is chickpea flour, which I know that we use in Indian cuisine for many different things, especially like fritters and things like that. Makes a very good egg substitute. And the reason why I thought about this is traditionally in French cuisine, there's something called socca, S-O-C-C-A, which is basically like a savory crepe, a thin pancake made out of chickpea flour. And so in this recipe, we make it moister than you would in that recipe and make it thicker so that it has a very egg-like consistency, which you'll see. And it's very simple to use. Adds protein and really as fiber as well. Many benefits that you don't get from eggs. So really simple to make.
Dr. Shu,
Yes.
can you make one camera adjustment for the one at the back? Just move it down so that, yeah, just tilt it down a little bit more. And a little bit more,
Okay.
if you can.
Yeah, I just don't want to knock it over. Let me see here.
Yeah, that's better because I think we can
Okay.
see what you'll be cooking now
Okay.
clearer.
Okay, yeah, you can keep letting me know if I need to adjust it. This is just it's blocking a little bit. I'm going to move it out of the way. These are just my chopped up herbs, which you'll see again in a second. Okay, so now we're going to start with the first part, and I'll move my chickpea package out of the way. The first part of this is really just to combine equal parts of chickpea flour, and this will be 2 cups each of chickpea flour and water, and stir until it's smooth. And okay, I'll put it there so you can see. It works best to do this with a whisk so that it combines it evenly. And if you're doing this from start to finish, do this part first, and then you can chop your herbs if you haven't chopped them already. As it sits, the chickpea flour will continue to combine with the water, so it's okay to stir it first. Actually, possibly preferable, just to let it dissolve completely, and so that you have a smooth batter. So you can see it's going to look very liquidy, similar to if you actually had eggs that you were scrambling together. I'm also going to add my salt and the baking powder. to this right now. And can someone let me know how we're doing for time? We have lots of time.
We have all the time in the world. It's 6:20. Does that help?
Oh, we finish in 10 minutes, right? Okay, I won't keep talking. Okay, so the rest of it.
We're
Dr.
like-
Shu, we've
Yes.
got more time. I mean, we typically try to end before 7 o'clock, so
Okay, yeah.
you can use your
I think
time.
we're okay anyway. I just wanted to get a time check. Thank you. But truly the rest of it just goes in. So once you've measured everything out, which is called doing your mise en place, it comes together very quickly. So I'll put my spices in next. So we've got our turmeric and our black pepper. Remember, those are friends. You don't want turmeric to travel on its own without the black pepper because we're increasing the bioavailability. So stirring that in. And then I'm going to stir in my fenugreek leaves.
Are they friends also?
You know, they're friends, but they don't have to be together.
Not as good friends as
They're not-
black
not
pepper and turmeric.
Turmeric and black pepper are really like your best friends, you know, joined at the hip. Okay, so I've got, and that smells so good, just stirring in that fenugreek. Really, that aroma is wonderful. And then I'm just going to fold in my chopped walnuts. Like this is the kind of recipe that anyone could make, you know, children can make this very easily and give them something to do so they don't get in your way when you're cooking, because they can do all of this actually. They, you know, except for small children and chopping the herbs, maybe the rest of it, this is all very safe to do and good practice. Okay, now I'm going to add in all of my chopped herbs. So
There's some questions coming in, but I'll ask one that's very relevant right now. For turmeric to be beneficial, what's the minimum ratio of turmeric to black pepper?
I don't have that answer for you, but I will look it up. That's
Good. That's a good question.
I actually, yeah, I'm hoping that information is out there. It must be somewhere, but I don't know that right now. Sorry about that. Okay, so we've got our green onion, and you'll see that you want to chop everything fairly small, just so that it folds better into your dish, your frittata or your cuckoo. This is the dill, and you can use different proportions depending on what you like or what you have. I think the most important, and this is just a quick tip from the restaurant world of how to keep your chopped herbs fresh. A slightly moistened paper towel at the bottom, possibly on top too, and keep it sealed well. And it'll keep fresh in the refrigerator for a few days at least. Okay, so dill.
Nice. And that goes with, can we extend the freshness of spices by storing in the refrigerator or freezer? Looks like you answered that.
I don't think I answered that one actually. You can extend it, but the caveat is moisture. So you'd have to make sure it's completely like airtight in how you're doing it. And I think that is a little bit challenging to do. But if it's an unsealed, you know, sealed package, I'm sorry, unopened sealed package, that will do well. So you're basically keeping out, you know, light and heat that way. The moisture is a trick.
Is it okay to freeze the moisture ingredients in the freezer in plastic boxes?
You can, but you still won't get all of the moisture out. The best way would be with one of those sealers, you know, that have plastic bags that you can basically seal all the way, or an unopened package if it's been commercially packaged.
No. My concern is about that toxic will leach into the food, right? This plastic will have a lot of toxics.
So glass is better than plastic for sure. Yes.
Yeah.
For any concern about that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. This is cilantro or coriander. And I wanted to say about the herbs, if you have different amounts or don't like one particular herb, you can substitute the equivalent volume of any of these others. But I think that the one herb that makes it taste most authentically Persian would be the dill and mint maybe, which is what I just added. Those two I would try to include in this. And then finally we have some parsley. So it's like this big pile, right? A ton of herbs. It looks just like only herbs, and that's what you want it to look like. So you want this to look pretty green basically, And I'm just going to, well, actually switch over to a screen one that I've added all of my herbs. Get this out of the way here. And so you just want to fold all of your herbs in, and I'm hoping, yes, you can see that well. But really no special technique here, just combining the batter and then adding all your herbs. And what you get a look at here is how completely packed with herbs this is. So even if we were making this with eggs, this serves about 8 people or more actually. And it's primarily herbs and only 5 eggs for the whole thing. But in this case, no eggs. All right, so we're ready to cook. I'm going to turn my induction burner and heat that and add a small amount of oil so it doesn't stick. And I want to make sure that warms up before I add this. So in the recipe that I presented to you, it was actually written originally for cooking it with eggs. And for that, because eggs take a little bit longer to cook than the chickpea flour, I covered it during the cooking process. I actually don't think you need to do that when you're using the chickpea flour. The other thing I had mentioned in that is that it can be hard to turn over partially cooked eggs. So I recommended cutting it into 4 quarters for turning it over, or putting a plate over to flip it over, which does require a little bit of technique. With this, I find that using 2 spatulas actually does a pretty good job of flipping it because it holds together really well. And so that's what I'll be showing you today. So I'm just checking.
Yeah, and I think Ram, there may have been some confusion of why we had asked you to do this without eggs. So he's saying, are we saying it's better to avoid eggs? Did you want to take why we asked you to not cook with eggs? Yeah.
Well, yes, thank you for that question. I'm sorry, I keep needing to sneeze and I'm not actually sneezing. So
Oh, bless you. It's the pepper. It's the black pepper, right?
It could be the flowers I bought for my kitchen, which I'm allergic to. I'm encouraging everyone to eat as many plants as possible. That's really what this is about. And some people on the call might be completely vegan. In terms of eggs, the general consensus is that even for patients who have concerns about heart disease, up to 1 egg per day is considered safe. People may eat eggs, more often than that, in which case I think it's nice to provide other options where you don't need to use eggs. So it's really just to provide that option. It depends on your health and, your particular health on how many eggs you can have. But generally up to 1 egg per day is considered okay. Okay, so now my pan is hot and I'm going to put this in. And you want to spread it out so it's pretty flat. Adjust my temperature. I'll admit that when I wrote this recipe using the chickpea flour, I didn't use this exact pan or an induction burner. And so now I'm questioning whether or not I need to actually cover it up, but I'm going to adjust the heat, and the time to turn it over, we'll be checking it in a few minutes. The time to turn it over will be after you peek underneath, if it looks golden brown on the bottom and slightly dried out, not completely wet as it is right now on top, then we can try to turn it over. So we'll just watch it a little bit, but this is a good time while it's just doing its thing to ask more questions if you have them.
Okay, you're such a pro, and I love the setup, and I know everybody does. Just it's like a cooking show from a doctor. Well, Debarati is asking, I don't think we got to this, from a nutrition perspective, is there any difference between the fresh and the dry herbs?
That is a great question. So I'll answer a different question first. From a culinary perspective, we know that when you're drying the herbs, that it's a much larger amount from fresh to dried. Basically, you need about 1/3 the amount of fresh. Sorry, 1/3 amount of fresh herbs for dried herbs for flavor. But when you're using dried herbs, then that means that you're actually consuming many more of the equivalent of the plant version. So you actually get the fiber, etc., in a smaller amount of herbs. In terms of the actual nutrition perspective, It kind of depends on the process, like if it's been subjected to heat as opposed to just drying, passively drying. You will lose some of the vitamins that are heat sensitive, which is many of them actually. But you'll still have all the minerals, so that won't change. And you'll still have the same amount of fiber that is present in the fresh herb. So it's really mainly the vitamins that you may be losing some of the potency of as you dry them. That is to say also, even for any vegetable, as soon as you pluck a vegetable from the ground, you start losing some of its nutrition benefits. And so fresh is best if you are trying to get as many of the vitamins as possible.
Is that organic or non-organic?
Thank you.
Can you say that again?
Are those spices organic or non-organic?
Oh, organic as often as possible for everything, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
One question I had about the spices. Are there certain things which we can use to reduce, increase metabolism to lose weight? And spices are general food. If you have any tips.
Yeah, spices that help with weight. So a few of them have some preliminary studies that they may be beneficial for weight. One of them is actually chili peppers. That one seems to have the most evidence that it helps kind of boost your metabolism. So that's the one that I would say we have the most evidence for that. But none of these are going to be like there's no magic pill, unfortunately, for anything, including for weight, or I should say, especially for weight. So I'm just going to rotate this because I think it's not cooking evenly. One side is more than the other. Give me a second here just so I can peek under and make sure I'm not actually going to burn this.
Okay.
Okay.
And Mehul, I'm glad you got your question. Tell me when you're ready for another.
Okay, you can go ahead. I've just.
Debarati had another good one about cinnamon. Just reading a lot about Ceylon cinnamon has many health benefits, whereas Saigon cinnamon does not. Is it true or not? True or false?
It is. They both have health benefits, but it's a matter of degree of health benefits. So that is correct, but so if you can make a choice, make one, but you don't lose out if you make the other choice. It's just a little bit less.
Excellent. And I think just one more right now, unless people are going to keep chatting. Yog has, what's your opinion, or is it advisable or not about the pre-mixed spices like vegetable masala, kidney beans masala, all of the masala pre-mixed spices?
So what's the question about the premix?
I guess, Yog, do you want to say what you're asking? I'm imagining that you're asking, is there any, if you want to elaborate, if the pre-mixed spices have any less benefit than if you do them all yourself. Is that what you're saying? Why don't you go ahead and ask it?
My question is, like, for Indian cooking, there are a lot of pre-mixed masalas you can buy, so you don't have to add cumin, coriander, all those things. They are pre-mixed. Is it advisable or not advisable to use them?
Okay. So I would say that a couple things. Some of those pre-mixed spices have salt added as well. And so just to be aware of that and to adjust accordingly, like if they do have salt, omit the salt from when you're cooking, just so that you don't over salt. And then otherwise there's no really disadvantage, just that you're not really controlling proportions yourself, but maybe that actually is a benefit, right? That that it has the flavor that you're looking for. So I would really just look at the ingredients label like you would with anything, and make sure you're not adding something you're not aware of, whether that's sugar, salt, preservatives, anything else like that.
That's an excellent point. Not everything is created equally, and we have to, be consumers that way and read the labels. Ram, you may have to help me with your own question to understand it. He's asking if the red chili powder from India is as good as peppers. Do you know what you mean by good? Yeah.
Yeah, you keep referring to peppers right now. In India, we don't necessarily use, it's not part of our Indian kitchen, right? We have red chilies, which are the cousins of Thai chili, for example, which is not always used. We have red chili powder, which is again, the twin of the Thai green chilies. So is that as good as the quote unquote peppers you're referring to?
Yeah, these are all the same family, actually. They're all chili peppers, and so they all have the same benefits.
Okay, and how about, right, how about the fact that anything spicy turns your body more acidic while keeping it alkalinity might be better for metabolic syndromes?
I actually don't know how to answer that question so much. So the studies don't really comment on that part of it. It's probably hard to answer. You need a study to be able to answer that.
It is hard. I was thinking you get all the fun questions. These are really probably have many answers and some controversy.
So
That's
you'll
good.
see,
Thank you.
let me pause for a second. I'm checking this and I'm seeing, so I'll explain why I'm using this pan that I think is not ideal for this, actually. The frying pan that I tested this in, it wasn't induction compatible, and I'm using induction just because of the setup. And it's not working well, I have to say, for this. I may need to transfer to stovetop and a different pan, but right
How
now.
exciting. It's like a real life moment.
I'm gonna try to do what I initially said with the quartering and to see if I can flip it over. I don't want to burn this either, but it's not doing the same as with my other pan. So let's see if I can get one part of it to be flipped over. Okay, so this is an example of how things don't always work out exactly right. So the pan that I used was a general nonstick pan, which again wasn't induction compatible, and it cooked much more evenly than this. So this is not ideal, but it's going to work. I flipped over one section, so I'm going to continue doing the others.
This is real world.
The real life, and a little sad for me, actually, that I'm having technical difficulties here. But another option, which I may or may not have included in this, is that you can cook one side, and basically the bottom of this is cooked right now, and then finish it off in the oven, actually, to bake it this way. And that is actually something that is done. These are both ways that it's cooked traditionally with the egg version, just because of flipping can be challenging. So the challenge here is that cast iron is not a very even distributor of heat, and that is not quite working out for me here. But I'm happy with how those first two quarters turned out. It's not the prettiest, but I will still make it look good at the end. I'm going to turn this over again using just 2 spatulas, so I don't have to go over to my stove and start over with this. And I promise that I will cook at least one of these quarters properly and plate it for you so you can see what it looks like. But it should look like the picture that you saw in the flyer, which looks better than what you see right now. With my apologies here. Let me turn over this last section.
Totally understandable. And it gives us, I think, if anybody agrees, it gives us more confidence when these sorts of things happen to us at home, and it doesn't always get as picture perfect as.
No, but it should look better than this, but it's technical difficulties. But it will work out. So right now I'm just kind of patting it down and making sure that it cooks. I'm actually going to grab a lid for it because it will need a little bit of that extra heat trapping here. So give me 1 second to get that and I'll be right back.
All right. We're waiting. If anybody has any questions, you can continue to chat them or keep your hand up.
Yeah. Could you briefly summarize what were the herbs and the greens she added?
The herbs and the greens that she added. Actually, we have the recipe. Would that be a good way to put it? Yeah.
Sorry, I've just got a lid here so I can bring back my plate of the whole herbs to show you again.
You're having Brenda saying it is still an amazing dish. Dr. Xu, thank you for doing this demonstration for us. We're all very appreciative.
I can't, this is not like TV where it's produced and mistakes would be repeated.
Even though you're pretty polished, so it feels like TV.
All right, so we've got our green onions or scallions.
Yes.
And we've got mint. This is flat or Italian parsley. Cilantro or coriander leaf. And then dill. Dill, I think, is the most characteristic flavor that you want to include in this.
And Ashish once again posted the recipe right there in the chat for everybody to see.
Excellent. Okay, so let me check on this now. And move I'll let you look at my book here while I'm moving things around. let's see if any of these quarters actually is fully cooked yet. It might need a few more minutes. But if one of them is done, I'm going to plate it. And again, this is not optimal here. This is fairly done. So I'm going to put some on a plate and just show you what it should look like, although it should look better. So this should be basically one portion here. At this point, it is suboptimal, a little bit lumpy, but I'll show you a nice angle of it. So you'll see that it looks like a frittata, right? So like an open-faced omelet. I'm just gonna turn this down a little bit. It's mainly herbs, and then it's held together by the chickpea batter, which it takes the place of the eggs. As I mentioned, normally this is it's served either in wedges, is how I describe it, or cut into little cubes that you eat like bite-sized pieces. That can be wrapped into a piece of lavash or flatbread. If you're eating it on its own like this, it's often garnished with a little bit more of the same ingredients that are in it. So for example, another piece of dill, often also served with some sliced radish, which makes it look very pretty. So I've pre-sliced some radishes here. And I'm just going to put a few, let me get the nicer slices.
This is looking really tasty. Ramesh is asking if you have a substitute you would use for dill if she's not fond of that flavor.
Then just skip the dill and use all the other herbs that we had here. Parsley, cilantro, and mint will be just fine for that.
And it seems like there's interest in the eggs also. Suba wants to know how many eggs would you use? I think you said 4 or 5.
It's 5 eggs if you're using eggs for this exact
Yeah,
recipe.
maybe we should put that in the recipe. Yeah, go ahead.
Great. So this is what it'll look like. And see, garnishes are great because not only do they cover up any.
I know. I was thinking that. It just looks like a beautiful art piece.
I'm gonna put it right there so you can see that. Can you see that? Well, let me move
Completely
I'll put my
tasty
dirty dish
redeemed,
on
and
the
we
right.
can see it. Ronnie wants to know about berries. Did you include them in the batter?
Yes, everything, all the ingredients are basically just all added to the batter. So just gonna turn off that loud fan there.
Zakir wants to know how many servings did you say 8 people?
This will be, yeah, about 8 servings here. So you can cut it into wedges, but if you're eating it sandwich style, as you would if you were having, if you put it into a piece of lavash, it will serve far more actually. So the first time I had it, it was actually cut up into nice little cubes that were eaten as an appetizer, in which case this can, serve many, many people. But if you're having it in wedges like this, it would be sort of like when you have quiche, this will serve 8 people. And along those lines, if you're making the original version with eggs, if it serves 8 people, that's actually the equivalent of less than 1 egg per person, which fits into dietary guidelines, even for people with heart disease.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah. It all works out amazingly.
Oh, good question from Zakir. Now you're going to refrigerate it. So how many days would you keep it in the refrigerator?
I would say it will keep, with most things, ideally within 5 days. But I think up to a week would be fine with this.
Okay, great. And Ramisa wants to know, could you just completely oven bake it instead of stovetop?
That's a good question.
Just like a frittata.
You probably could, although I would start with cooking on the stovetop only to get it a little bit more golden on the bottom, which you can't get the same effect when you're oven baking it. But if you don't care about that golden part, that is actually a nice, easy remedy for that, I think. That's a good idea.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, we're going to do the raffle. It's my turn to ask questions.
A raffle. There's no more in the chat, so.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to turn off. Well, actually, I'll leave it so you can look at it. Let me make sure it looks pretty in your picture.
It's for this,
For your
is
last
the
view.
book right there? Are we looking at it? It's
Here, I'll put the book also in this
an amazing book being raffled off.
kitchen.
There it is.
We
We can see it that way.
Some of the pictures. So all the food pictures actually in my presentation were from this book. So
Go a little lower, I think, for us to see.
there we go.
That's good.
thank you. I'm going to show you the actual book version of the egg version of this dish. Hold on, let me find it.
Oh, nice.
Because it looks similar, just of course more perfect looking.
Who did all this photography? You cooked it and somebody you
I cooked it, and my photographer took it, but it looks pretty similar, I think.
yeah. I think you have to bring it to the left. Are you going backward? There it is.
Real life
Nice.
and
Wow.
picture.
Beautiful.
In the picture, it's styled with some of the additional walnuts.
Rashmi wants to know, is this on Kindle also?
It is available on Kindle, yes. So if you buy from Amazon, you can get the ebook or the actual version. For me, I've actually never really adapted to cooking from ebooks. I think
Oh, it's such a
little harder
beautiful
for me, but I
book, and
know
it-
people
Yeah.
think, for some people that, who are younger and more modern, maybe you prefer the ebook, and it also has the advantage where you can just wipe off your iPad if you get food on it. But
But so beautiful, the hardback book.
have,
What about Libby, the library app? How about that?
yeah, exactly.
Do you know if it's on the library app, Libby? Oh, she said it is. Yeah, she already checked. Did you know that?
And if it's not available at your library or at your favorite bookstore, you can always request it too, and that way it will be.
Oh, right.
That's always a good thing to do, especially for libraries. I definitely want as many people as possible to take a look at this.
Let's all go to our local library and request Spicebox Kitchen.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, so Ashish, we have 3 copies to give away, right?
3 copies to give away, and
Okay.
you will ask the question,
I will ask the question.
and Erica is going to be deciding who answers first.
Was this like a race? It was kind of intense last time. Like you asked the question and then everybody's like racing to the keyboard. Okay.
A little bit like that. So everyone get your fingers ready, get your chat box ready to answer. Because I suspect that many people hopefully will know the answers to these. All right.
4 copies in 4 copies in the library system in Oregon. Okay, so get your hands ready at your keyboard. Dr. Shu, Chef Shu, is going to ask a question, and then is it the first person, or should we do like the third person to answer? That would be fun.
Oh. I'll let you decide. You can decide which one.
What do you think? I
The first
decide?
one.
I think it should be first though, because it's really hard, because then people will be trying to time to be later, and it's
That's like when you go on a radio show, they're always like the third one to call in. I thought it would be fun that way. Okay, we'll do first.
okay. First person with the correct answer. First question. What besides protein, which is also present in eggs, what other major nutrient do you get when you use chickpea flour instead of eggs?
Okay, Sue says fiber first.
Okay, Sue.
I love all the spellings of fiber. And my heart is pounding. Sue is the winner.
All right, Sue, I hope you enjoy this. Okay, next question and your next chance. This one is an easy one. I'm gonna give you a very easy one. So everyone really be fast with this one. Which spice is turmeric's best friend?
Okay, the winner is the Lauren Chandler, Black Pep.
Great.
Very good, Lauren.
Okay.
Didn't even need to say pepper, but she got black pep and nobody else got that.
All right. Okay. And then, which spice has been shown to have similar properties to the migraine medication sumatriptan or Imitran?
Okay, I'm getting cinnamon, ginger, wait.
Ginger is correct.
Ginger. Wait. Where did we go? I think Ronnie. Yeah, Ronnie Narayan. Ginger.
All
Is
right.
that the first one? Am I right? Yep. Now everybody else, you're doing amazing. We want to acknowledge you. I mean, look at all these beautiful answers. But those were our 3 winners, and I think
Congratulations, everyone, and thank you for playing along. I'll come actually closer before.
Lauren, Ronnie, Sue, all of you need to send an email to sahc@elcaminohealth.org and figure out where to pick up your incredible copies of Dr. Shu's book.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I hope that was fun and not too nerve-wracking.
It was. I mean, my heart is pounding. I don't know about everybody else.
Can I see the 3 winners? You want to show yourselves on
Yeah,
camera?
do you? Let's see you. Let's see the winners. if you can wave, wait, who was it? It was Lauren. I'm showing Lauren.
I see Lauren. Hi, Lauren.
I'm trying to spotlight.
And I see Ronnie Narayan